Ja tere tulemast tagasi. Kõik inimesed laval, kellega sa...
Welcome back. Magically, we have all the people on the stage that we can carry on discussing. I will just briefly say in Estonian that all today's speeches can be found from the website of the Information Center, and the same applies to the video of today's seminary. This will also be available later on. We are just doing a little bit more work on it, but everything that's seen and heard today should be recorded for you. However, now, at your kind permission, we also expect you who are everyone who is online to join the discussion, which is the panel discussion, the last point in our agenda, which also comes with the Q&A button. So please write out your thoughts, your ideas, and let's try and ask these from our speakers today. But I've also managed to write out some ideas myself, and perhaps we'll start with those. So I'll switch on to English.
That's fine with all of you. And so just for the introduction and to warm ourselves up, I have a thought. Is there any news that you heard today? Or maybe, let's put it simpler, what are your first flashbacks from today's seminar? Did anything surprise you? Or if it didn't, then just first views and flashbacks from today. So, yeah, you're very welcome to start, for example. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Let's see. Yeah, now I think it's on.
Now it's on?
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So I found it very refreshing how people are communicating here, and I like the research which is being done in Estonia, especially research on rivers, lakes and the coastal area, so I like that very much.
Very good, thank you. This is just a pleasure that you have such warming words for all people. Yes, and we can continue with you, Lauri. Anything new, any flashbacks from today?
Yeah, I was really interested how strong were the effects down the food chain, how the effect of top predator basically in the system as working down to the basically bacterial level in really small ecosystem, and how well did it actually demonstrate it. I really enjoyed that one.
Thank you. Gunther, so good that you are with us today, and you have been listening and watching since the very beginning of the seminar. Did you have something new for yourself, or if you didn't, then what are the main points that maybe you wrote yourself down today?
I noticed that the conditions are very different in Europe. For example, in Estonia, we don't have such mountainous rivers with high concentration of herbivorous fish, and so I haven't really given thought of such dynamics with the cormorant. And of course, the data, a lot of data that Niels showed was very dramatic indeed. So yes, this definitely made me question some aspects of the cormorant situation, this cormorant conflict, but it also makes me wary that whether we can have a Europe-wide cormorant management plan if the conditions are so different from each other.
Yeah, we can move on to that just in a bit, but maybe also, Niels, you can add something maybe that was, I don't know, either news or just pops up your mind in the first place.
Yeah, well, I keep a good contact with people around and talk quite often with Marcus and so on, so I'm not super surprised, but I'm still very surprised every time I come here to see the amount of fish you guys have in your lakes and your rivers and on the coast. For me, it's absolutely stunning. I mean, it's so nice, and I'm so jealous. I just want to move to Estonia now. But of course, what I bring home now, which is in front of my head, is that it was actually possible to use these pharyngeal bones for the pellet analysis as good as the otoliths. That's a very interesting thing for me that I can bring forward. But yeah, so that was nice, and I always enjoy the discussions here because there's always questions coming up that you're like, oh, I didn't think of that. So it's all good. Yeah.
Thank you. And maybe we can now move on to, let's say, maybe some, let's say, harder questions in a way someone might tell. So if a person, for example, watched today's seminar and made his or her remarks from today's seminar, what would you tell to a viewer who has watched this seminar and has come to a conclusion that this problem is somehow pretty black and white? Is this really so? Or would you argue that we are missing something in the bigger picture? I don't know. Whom of you wants to start?
I can start on that. Yeah, I think that's
okay, Niels.
That's a super interesting thing that might come in one's mind. This is super simple. A lot of people think that. They say, but we see this every day. We don't have any problems but the cormorants. And of course there are other problems. And like Carola said, we're not solving all problems with that. Plus, like you say, we have so different conditions. When people think about cormorants in Portugal, the only thing they think about is these extensive aquaculture facilities they have, because that's the only place they see any conflicts. And when you look in Bavaria, it's these carp ponds. And when you look to us, I think Denmark it's not just by accident that we have done most research. It's because we have been really hard hit by this. We have had a very, very high density of cormorants for a very, very long time. In the British Isles, they have lots of conflicts, but they have so few cormorants compared to us. But they still have a lot of conflicts and hired people to help them regulate cormorants on a professional basis and so on. But then when they come to Denmark and hear about the number we have, they are really surprised. So I think the conditions are so different, as you say, in different countries that is something you have to keep in mind. It's definitely not black and white. And when I go out in the coast and say, which is very unpopular in my country, these days we have a big political discussion all the time about eutrophication of our coastal system. The coastal system have collapsed. Everybody agree on that. The reason most people agree is because of agriculture, nutrients, and oxygen deficits. The thing is that when we do the research and look at the numbers, it doesn't really add up with what we saw from that. So actually the cormorant predation thing is a good alternative explanation, but we cannot document that. I'm not going out and saying I can document that this is the problem. I can say that at these conditions, this is the problem. And I can say that now the cormorants are the biggest problem. It's not the fishery anymore because there's so little fishery. It is the cormorants. But why are the cormorants so important? Then people from other sides says it's because there's no oxygen left out in the open, so all the fish are pushed into the shore, and then the cormorants can eat them. And of course it looks like the cormorants are the problem, but it's actually the other thing that is the underlying problem. And yeah, it's probably right. But we have to work with what we have.
Yes, Gunther, what are your thoughts? Is it so black and white as one might think?
Yeah, no, ecosystems are very complex, and when I think of the cormorant conflict, I'm always reminded by the 4 Pests campaign by Mao Zedong in China in the 50s and 60s. So they wanted to exterminate rodents and mosquitoes and also sparrows. They killed like 1 billion sparrows, and they thought that they would exterminate the pest that eats the seeds, but actually it turns out that the sparrow also eats the little insects that eat the grain, and so there was this hunger crisis, and this also makes me think that maybe there is some good to cormorants as well. We are always so concentrated on finding these negative aspects of cormorant that no one is looking at the positive sides. So yeah, I'm just thinking maybe, for example, if the cormorant eats the sticklebacks and the sticklebacks are eating the eggs of the perch, then maybe in a way they help the ecosystem, they help some fish populations, and yeah, that's some of my thoughts about this black and white situation.
Yeah. Thank you. And Karola, I'll ask and kind of turn this question to you in a way that, what would you tell? Are we missing something in this big picture if we just deal with it as a simple black and white question?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say so from the ecological point of view, like Kunter explained right now. But I also think we would miss a completely ethical point of view. So there's no such thing like a bad species or a good species. They just are. They are valued by themselves. So they might cause problems. Not by themselves, maybe we aided them a little bit, I guess. So, but there is this whole ethical thing we are not discussing here.
Yes, thank you. And Lauri, for kind of summing up this side of how to help people who are either very concretely believing that this is a really simple question, we know how to solve it, how they should be, how to tell, are we missing if we deal it with a too simple angle?
Well, I don't think we are dealing with too simple angle. It's just one of those pressures we see in nature, and like Nils showed in his talk, we usually tend to think in really simplistic systems, but nature is a really complicated system. And when we consider any kind of population in the nature, we have to remember the Lieberg's rule that the most efficient factor that is limiting the growth of this population is the condition which is satisfied the least, so which has its critical level. And in these cormorants and fish, we see that we have one really strong pressure. We of course have other pressures as well. We can't remember, we should never forget it. The life of a wild animal is not fun and happy hippie life. It's actually really hard and struggle for life. And so if we have really strong pressures and they're combining, there's actually no difference which is the straw that breaks the camel's back. If we are not regulating it and we are living in an anthropocenic environment, we can't go back to the prehistoric times where there's no human pressure. And if we want to preserve the biodiversity in our system, we have to really hardly see these kind of situations. And so it's not so black and white, but quite often to actually save some populations, we have to just grab on with what we can.
I see what you mean. So just before we move on with further questions from here, yeah, I turn to you because I see that somebody has written down at least some comments. Let me just see and pick one, for example, which says that ecologically the concern is understandable. So fishermen seem to be highlighting the cormorant problem for economic gain, but it is difficult to see how this contributes to a solution. I don't know, this is more or less like a comment, but would you kind of help answering to a comment like that? Yeah, maybe Karola.
Yeah, it is quite a difficult discussion, I think. Especially as I heard during the break, okay, cormorants do have to eat fish, humans do not. This is correct. But on the other hand, we can't just neglect one part of our food source and one part of our industry. So it is not, I mean, harvesting fish to eat is not by itself bad. So we did that for a long time. So it's not that all fishermen are kind of bad people because they want to eat the fish or to hunt the fish and to sell them and to make profit. So it must be possible to do that as well. But of course, it cannot lead to an extinction of another species. But on the other hand, it should also, I mean, we need to protect fish stock from fishermen, but we also need to protect the fish stock for the fishermen from the birds. So it's very, very complicated situation we do have here.
I see. Gunther, maybe you have something to add or just give an argument for this comment as well?
It may be a bit a far stretch, but when I think of the cormorant impact on the ecosystems, I always try to go back in geological time. Like there have been species of cormorants for tens of millions of years, like 30 millions of years, if I remember correctly. And the problems of cormorants starting to eat up all the fish have begun now after humans have done some very big changes to the ecosystems. So I'm thinking like, is the problem the cormorants or the humans, or is like the interaction of them together? But yeah, there's no easy answer to this. I know, but yeah, it's a very difficult topic.
And yeah, thank you for this view. We have one question coming up from this from our audience. Just a second. No, we'll have another microphone so that we don't mix them up. We have a sprinter here who's bringing the microphone. And yeah, who are you and what's the question?
Yeah, Markus Vetemaa, Marine Institute. Actually, I must say that I knew these things with the last presentation Niels told. We have talking with Niels with the case, but I'm still actually very depressed. I really very sad now because once again I saw that in Denmark, which we in Estonia, we think actually that Denmark is very developed, very bright, nice nation, so on. And if these things happen there, I'm really very depressed and I'm very, very, very pessimistic about what was going on. And actually, when I'm thinking what can be done, and also one thing is that I feel a little bit bad. It was told that we are grazing the cormorants or growing the cormorants or exporting the cormorants. That seems to be true, seems to be fact. And actually, I have one very practical question to bird people, maybe to Gunther. First of all, I say that actually I don't think that Gunther, your life is easy, because there are a lot of people who are looking to you now that, these were ornithologists, they are the guilty ones. But actually, thank you for coming here and having a debate for us. And my question is very practical, that in this plan, which we talked, this cormorant plan, Estonian cormorant plan, this is kind of goal to agree on maximum number of cormorants. Do you, Gunther, personally, or maybe on behalf of your sire, do you think this is possible? Do you think that we actually can agree on this some kind of number? I think if we go to the animals, let's say moose and wild boar, I think there is some kind of idea how much there should be in Estonia these. And what do you think, can we agree on a number of cormorants in Estonia? Because I think we more or less know that the problem is that the bird watchers and ornithologists are the kind of main force stopping this. This is my feeling. So what do you think about that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what we in Estonian Ornithological Society have said over the years is that we need to see what is the impact of cormorant predation on these coastal fish populations, because if we do not know which species or which populations we are trying to protect, then we can't measure the effect of cormorant culling or egg oiling in the long term. We don't know when to stop. If we don't have any quantitative trait to analyze, we can't say at one point that, okay, the fish stock have now recovered, we can stop cormorant culling or egg oiling. So we need some kind of quantitative measurement for this, and this is why we have gone to court several times. And like Niels said, we need data to have some kind of proof. And I think that the number of cormorants depends on this impact that they are having, if it is possible to calculate from that kind of data. But yeah, I'm also like from the ornithological side, I'm also like very afraid that the fish industry side, the number of cormorants that they would be happy with is very low, because even when we had four times less breeding pairs in Estonia in 2012 or something, already then we had the egg oiling. So are we gonna reduce the numbers from 40,000 pairs to 10,000, or do we need to go to 5,000, or I don't know. Some fishermen have said that in Estonia we only need 2 cormorants and they should both belong to a museum. So, so you know, there's also this kind of
extreme
side.
thoughts, I see.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my opinion.
I see. Yeah, Niels, you wanted to add something for this.
Yeah, I just asked for the word there, but yes, because it's absolutely pretty vital that we look at this thing, and me coming from this Mordor of fish, like Markus says, I have had some time to think about this, of course, and the thing is, when we have these discussions, it often comes down to like, are we going to exterminate one or another? And nobody wants to exterminate cormorants. Well, maybe some of the fishermen, like you said, are, but everybody I know that works for fish and fisheries, they are really happy with the cormorants. They like them very much, and we were all really happy when they came back, because we didn't have them for many years. So, and we all think they're very nice and funny birds to see and so on, but of course we cannot tolerate that we lose all our fish. I mean, now I showed you that we lost grayling populations that has been there since the glacial time. We lost these lake trout populations. The genetics are gone forever. We will never get them again. They're totally gone. We can put some other in and maybe we'll be lucky to get something, but they are gone genetically as a component. So we lose biodiversity on this account, which is a big problem, and we would not lose biodiversity in terms of cormorants, because we would never ever want to go down to like 2,000 pairs or 3,000 pairs in Denmark. The only thing that we always ask about, you saw my graph there, the exponential growth, then it flattens out at 40,000 pairs, and exactly at that point was where we should have culled some. Just a little bit, maybe 10%, 5% would have been enough, because then we would still have this engine going, we would still have food. If our coasts were producing food like it did 20 years ago, when the conditions was worse, where there was more eutrophication 20 years ago, much more fishing, we would have no problem with cormorants. We could easily feed them, because our coasts are extremely productive. It could produce tons of fish per hectare, and the cormorants could eat what they want with the number we have now. The problem is, if you come down this aisle like we did, then it goes real fast, because then you start grazing down the food chain and you start eating the smaller and smaller and smaller fish. So cormorants now eat cod and flounder this size instead of this size. That means they can have a much bigger impact per bird. So we are in a condition that nobody wants to end in. And you're not here, you're not there at all here in Estonia. And I wish that you could get at least just a little bit of leverage, so you could maybe keep the population just 10% under this carrying capacity, because then I think everything would be okay. But as soon as you reach that, and all animals, all natural animals will reach that, if there's nothing else that keeps them away, if it's not the possibilities of finding a breeding site or predation on them, then it will be the food. There's nothing else. Yeah, of course, temperature. You can cross your fingers and hope for much colder winters. Then you will be much better off. But it seems to be the opposite, because that's a very, very good protection against cormorants is ice.
But yeah, as we now see, climate is mostly still getting warmer. Yeah. I hope that we have some more questions coming up online. But yeah, Carola, you're very welcome to add your views. Yes, please.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to say something about those effects that, of course, I understand that ornithologists say, well, we want to see the effects and then we are willing to talk. The problem is that maybe the cormorants breeding here don't have any effects here, but maybe somewhere else, because I'm coming from the wintering habitats, and they might have a huge impact there, but not here. But we cannot regulate that impact by hunting wintering cormorants. So I think it's a whole European problem. We need to see the whole European picture and not just from one country or even, as in Germany, from one state. So it's very important, I think.
So yeah, which brings us back to some of the questions. I would like to move on just slightly further on. Maybe we just kind of, let's not say slow it down a bit, but why do you think maybe if we think about the bird, the cormorant, just to make sure, what do you all think from your expertise side, why are they so effective in what they do that we now have to spend hours and hours, days and years talking about them? What makes them so special, let's say, superpower birds catching fish? Maybe I don't know if...
They are. Well, I was asked this question a lot of times by journalists, and a lot of times the journalists end up by asking me, but is it really important that there are fish in the rivers and on the coast? Why do you need to have fish there? And I'm like, okay, I can't answer that. But no, they are just efficient. I don't know, as I tried to say, I don't know any other predators that have such a wide range of food items that they can pick between and that can forage efficiently in so different habitats, like 30 meters down in clear water or in a lake that is really dirty. They can also find their fish there, and they can find fish in rivers and even in garden ponds and stuff. So they are just super efficient because they have so generalistic. And of course, Günther's argument about what happened before people is always triggering one. But again, I always say, nobody knows what the system was at that time. There could have been lots of things. I think in the Stone Age, people were really targeting cormorants. That was a good food source for them because they were good eggs and good chicks to be found, and they were also competitors. So I think they were really eaten by people. We have these petrified kitchen place from the Stone Age where we find a lot of skeletons and heads from cormorants. So they were eaten big time. There was a study from Germany looking back to 1,000 years back in the European history, and they concluded that cormorants have been here for 1,000 years, but at a very low level, maybe up to 50,000 pairs. And now we have almost 500,000. So we are also on a very different level of abundance.
So they're kind of plastic, but when I think about the physical capabilities, maybe Lauri, you also as a let's say bird person can tell me like what makes them so special? Why are they so capable of catching fish and others don't?
Yep, they're perfectly adapted for that. As they are rather archaic group of birds, the Pelicaniformes, they are really old and well adapted for what they do. And of course, when we speak about the Baltic, we have to remember that, for instance, in case of Estonian coast, they actually entered the blank page. Basically, they haven't been here, and most of the islands where they are actually nesting at the moment have never had cormorants before because they were under the sea before. And we used to have this continental subspecies of cormorant, but never the sinensis here. So they entered totally new area. And they entered the totally new area at the moment when humanity was at the end coming to the senses, and we were really efficient in doing the nature conservation. All these islets, which were used as grazing areas before, nowadays they are totally nature protection areas, and no human impact is allowed. So they are left for nature, except usually the mammal predators are removed from the island quite often. So what we have done is we have created perfect nesting conditions on one really good generalist predator. They're basically like, for fish, they are basically like humans. There's no difference who removing the fish from the effective population. Either are they generalist predators like humans or generalist predators like cormorants. And quite a lot of discussion has been given that, of course, but there's white-tailed eagles are eating quite a lot of cormorant chicks. But yeah, but it's again basic ecology. You have to check on the basis of ecological pyramid to control for the cormorant population. You need a certain biomass of eagles, and eagles are mostly restricted by the nesting areas, not by food. And so probably the predation pressure on the cormorants is not as high.
Yeah.
We can see it in some areas, of course, the human-induced predators like raccoons in Poland, which are becoming more and more efficient. But thank God we don't have raccoon yet in Estonia, because we can see what these kind of predators can do. We are not hoping for that.
I see. Gunther, maybe the same as question to you as well. Why do you think or see cormorants being so effective in what they do and eat? Because there are, of course, other birds who eat mainly or only fish. What makes them so powerful?
Well, they see very well and hear very well in the sea, but in the water. But what I have to say about this is that there's an old saying in Estonian that nature doesn't like an empty spot. And I think that this empty spot has been created by humans. We have overfished the large predatory fish, the piscivorous fish from the seas, and we have caused large-scale eutrophication, which causes a large number of small fish to grow in these eutrophic areas, and cormorants need a lot of fish to settle in these large colonies, and they are just taking advantage of the environmental situation created by man. And I think in the long run we just have to deal with turning back the ecosystem into this normal state that was before human impact, and then we would see that the cormorant numbers would go down naturally. But I have very little faith that humans can actually turn back eutrophication, because we are very dependent on our industries and farming and so on. So yeah, I'm afraid that cormorant is gonna be a troubled species for many more years in Europe, and we'll have to see how it all turns out.
We'll have to see, most definitely. We have some hands rising here. So whoever was the first one, I guess once again, Markus Vetemaa, and then we can turn to Üllar. And yeah, the microphone is yours.
I have actually a very practical question. I think we need to be very practical, and this is mostly to Niels. When I look to your presentation, I realized that you have done so many good studies that, almost everything. and now, well, in Estonia, we have now in this point that we want to do some studies. We need to prove also things here in Estonia. So, but the money which is available is in the magnitude of maybe 10 times smaller than we have, and also time is, we don't have a lot of time because we need to prevent this. It's not like that we scientists want to take. We want to make studies and let's go what is even happening, and we document this and then we write a publication. It's rather that we need to do something to prove that these things need attention. And the question is that, keeping in mind that our fishes are quite the same, and the sea is quite the same, and lakes and rivers, not exactly the same, but still quite the same. It's not like China or Thailand.
No,
it's
similar.
quite same. So why should we do? What kind of points, what kind of studies you think are important for us? And other part of studies maybe actually we can take over, because I think it's not like that you need to repeat every study in every country, or how you would reflect to that?
Yeah, it's a really good point, because as you say, one thing is money, the other thing is time, and time is of the essence for many things here. And we have made studies in Denmark while everything basically collapsed around us. And in the start, when I started looking at cormorants, we had caught everywhere, like everywhere. And now we couldn't even find any caught to tag anymore because they were more or less extinct. And so we have to do something within a short time frame. And of course, what Markus is troubled about is, can we take results from another area and transfer them and say maybe it will be the same here? The situation have been much with that with Sweden and Denmark, because in Sweden they never really did any studies, but they have a lot of conflicts and a lot of court trials, and they called me in as an expert witness all the time, and I say, I can just tell you what happens in Denmark, and then some people say, no, but it's not the same in Sweden, and I say, no, it's probably not, but you don't have anything else. So Marcus has a good point here, and the thing is, if you need to document to your authorities that the cormorants are doing a big damage on your fish stocks here, to be able to regulate them a little bit, then that's a difficult thing, because as I said, to me it seems that you still have a very well-functioning fish system. The cormorants have certainly made some changes, but you still have basically the basis is there. So where you want to look is probably something you should talk mostly to the fishermen about and say, where is this documentation that we would like to use? And you need the documentation at least if you want to have permissions to do regulations and to the Birds Directive. So again, where are the first signs? That's basically what you ask, Marcus. Where is the first signs that you see that these things are going? And as long as your cormorants are not in your rivers and only in the lakes and on the coast, okay, that's one of the first signs that it's really bad. But of course, you should look at the predation on the coast. You should try to tag, like we talked about, some of your coastal fish. I think a fish like the pike perch also is super relevant, because they can. There is something about them that could be very, very much impacted by the cormorants. So,
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you for your comment. And we have another question coming from the audience. So who are you and your question?
So my question is basically the same, but what do you think, Niels, what is the main or biggest mistake what your government has done to solve this cormorants problem?
No, I really don't think we have made mistakes as such. If you ask the fishermen, they would say that, because I was already in a meeting in 1989 where we had the fishermen saying, if we don't do anything now, in 20 years we will be all gone, and we were just all laughing because But actually, all the things that the fishermen said, more or less, turned out to be true. So they can sit now with the upper hand and say, yeah, we were right, but they're just not fishing anymore. So there has been mistakes, you can say, but again, in an European context, it's really, really difficult. I think we had good years in the authorities. In the first 3-4 years I was there, everybody laughed. As soon as I started talking about cormorants having an impact, it was like, yeah, and then we worked. But then we started to do these studies, and we started to document things, and then now it's a very big change, and everybody in the whole situation, from the minister down to the official clerks and authorities, they take this in and they know it. They see it's a problem. There's a big consensus that this is a big problem. Now we are just looking for solutions, and there we have to look to EU all the time, because again, we cannot shoot ourselves out of this question. Even if we shoot 200,000 birds in Denmark a year, I don't think we will solve the problem, because there's so few fish left. So the biggest mistake we have made is probably that we couldn't convince EU about taking this more seriously. And as I always try to say to people, if you don't believe this is a problem, why are you so opposing that we try? Let's try it. It doesn't cost us anything. Let's take an area, remove the cormorants just from that little area. It doesn't have to be hundreds of thousands of cormorants. You remove just few and then monitor the fish and see what's happening. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's so damn simple. Everybody can do it. There's no danger. You don't put any animal species in danger. The only thing you have to make sure is that other bird species that might be rare or threatened are not impacted by what you do. So we have had several of these applications in Denmark with whole fjord systems like Ringkøbing Fjord, where we say, let's go out there, monitor the fish, remove all the cormorants, and then see next year what's happening. But we just never got the funding.
And I guess also this brings us once again back to these ethical questions as well. But if I turn this question and move slightly further on, I might be slightly wrong or right, but as I've concluded, now in Estonia we have kind of, let's say, a plan. Not telling that every side has agreed on that there will be some kind of really focused oiling of the eggs in some certain nesting areas, which are, let's say, mostly crowded or most populous. And the other side is that to have more hunting, let's say, to make the hunting of cormorants, let's say, more popular, so that hunters would have more cormorants in their pocket, in their bag. So, do you think that hunting and focusing on some nesting areas with oiling the eggs is this kind of a plan with the cormorants would be successful in Estonia? What are your thoughts on that? And I would like to have like all of your views on that. Maybe we can start with you, Gunther. Is oiling and hunting successful plan for Estonia, if that would be the case?
I don't really want to answer to this question at this point, because I really need to first see the goal. What is the goal of culling and oiling of cormorant to answer whether it's a good and effective strategy.
I see. So more data needed. But let's say from your side, having your ideas. Yeah.
I guess that from a population point of view, the combination of hunting and oiling might be effective. It's all in the numbers. So if you just oil like 5% of an egg of a colony, then you won't achieve anything. And as Niels showed in the results, if you oil all the eggs, the colony will still stay there and they will feed on that same side. So on that side, you wouldn't reduce any predation pressure. But you would, of course, reduce the pan-European cormorant population. Exactly. But by how much? So, we need an aim, and then we need to adjust the numbers and the effort, I think.
Niels, do you have something to add?
Yeah, oiling is in my world a very good thing. When you talked about ethical things, I mean, it's much rather having, like the animal protection organization in Denmark said to me once, they said, well, we would much rather have you poisoning and killing 300,000 cormorants in a very humane way than running around shooting them with lead bullets so that half of them die and half of them don't, and so on. Because that's where we work on for animal welfare. That's a fair statement. But I think that oiling is really good. It's economically valid as long as you have the cormorants on the ground. Like if you have the ground nesting thing, it's fine. You can go there. You don't really bother them much. They fly away the first few times, but then they get used to it and they basically hop off the nest and you oil and then they come back on. So it's not a big economic or waste of time impact. But again, as Carola says, you need to get a lot oiled. And if we could do that on a European level, in that management plan, that would be fantastic. Hunting is more, as I see it now, hunting is more moving the problem around. You can try to keep them out of some areas, like they also tried in Switzerland to keep them from the rivers and out into the lakes, and it has been having some success some places around, but that would be a good thing. But again, in Estonia, for you guys now, it's all about trying to get something to control the cormorant population that is not only food. Just something else. I don't care if it's oiling or shooting or more gulls or more of these eagles or whatever, but something that can keep you right under that level, because then you won't see all this collapse. I'm sure your system will be able to work for a long, long time. Maybe fishing will go down a little bit and sizes and so on, but you would have a chance. But if you miss that chance and you just let the whole population explode like this, it will reach the bottom or the top at some point. So oiling together with some regulative hunting is probably super good, and especially if you can get volunteers to do the hunting. Because again, if you have to pay for it, I don't know how it is in Estonia for paying for damages, but I can tell you that down through Europe, Central Europe, it's many millions of euros every year that is paid out for direct cormorant damages because they have compensation schemes. Just in Czech Republic, it was 58 million euros. Just for direct damages from cormorants. So it's a very expensive thing. And when we talk about regulating cormorants, it's not different than regulating moose or like a lot of the ornithologists in Denmark work very hard for regulating predators like foxes away from an area, so they get all the foxes shot in that area because we have problems with some birds. And I mean, that's okay. That's what we do. We do regulate things. Yeah. And you have to do it in the best feasible way so it doesn't cost too much, and of course it shouldn't cause extra harm to the animals. So that's it.
I see your views. And Lauri?
Yep. I think the old good WWF slogan, think locally, think globally, act locally, would be really good, because as we saw, sadly, Niels, you said that probably no Estonian cormorants in Denmark, but yes, there are. Already almost 20 years ago, they had the first tagged, Estonian tagged chicks already nesting in Denmark as well. So we see actually pan-Baltic, almost pan-Mictic population. So if we are just reducing the growth of the population at one edge of the breeding area, it has a little effect. As it was in Denmark, you can oil as much as you want, but if Estonia is keeping exporting the birds, the effect is not visible. But if we actually manage to do it in all the area of this breeding population, then we might have quite nice effects. And quite often the discussion is about that should we do something which has no effect? As Niels said, of course it has effect. Otherwise nobody would oppose it. But you don't see it before you try. We can't model everything. We can't only rely on using really bad data and modeling. We should actually at the end do the experiment as well.
Carola, do you have something to add for this question, or all
No,
included?
thanks. Everything is said.
Okay. Gunther, do you have something maybe now, as you've kind of digested the other answers, or might I move on to our last question, would be kind of summarizing question, or do you have something now, hearing these thoughts?
No, you can go with the summarizing.
Okay, I see. Well, the thing is, this is the part where to ask, how do we continue from here, and how can we make sure that people, because it's kind of a problem, we have one hand up there, just, I come back to this summarizing question, so yeah, we can go to this gentleman over here. Yeah, we hear your question.
Before I start speaking, so maybe please finish your summarizing thesis.
I might do that.
And then I will fit better into after this.
I see. Yeah, let's see. So my question is how to continue from here, and how can we make sure that people with opposing views are included in this discussion and solutions, so to call. So what do you think, how we move on from here? So this is your comment,
yes,
and this is your answer.
This is my time. Thank you. First, I introduce myself. My name is Jarek Zieliński. I'm representing Baltic Sea Advisory Council. I am the chair of the executive committee of this organization. First, allow me to congratulate organizers of this workshop, and thank you for invitation. And I see, and I'm sure that this is the great, although this looks like a small workshop, but I heard from the gentleman that there's 100 people attending this workshop, so it's a really interesting topic for everyone. And I believe that this is a great step in finding the balance in conservation and in management of this of the cormorants, of the predators. We in the Baltic Advisory Council, we organized 2 workshops on the predators in the cormorants and about the seals. A year ago it was about the applicable legislation and about the science researchers. We had the pleasure also to hear presentations from Niels and from the scientists from almost all over the Baltic Sea. A month ago we had a discussion workshop about finding the solution, conservation measures, and this balance. And because we believe that and I know now that after this discussion we had a month ago and today, that this dialogue based on the facts and seeking the balance is the way we should go. And just wanted to share with you and this may be the, I believe this will be the response to your question, what next? So we had this workshop, and let me just share with you promptly in short text which will show you how complex the discussion was, and that all the opinions and positions were taken into account, because we're talking about the conservations of the predators and also on the management of the predators. So the BSAC recalls that conservation and management of cormorants take place in the Baltic Sea, which is a challenge by simultaneous developments among other species interaction, climate change, eutrophication, and change in salinity. The BSAC acknowledged that cormorants have always been a part of ecosystem in the Baltic Sea basin, although probably never in such numbers seen in relation to mostly very diminished fish stocks, and that the difficult issue at stake is to find the balance between conservation and management of cormorants. The scientific data presented during the BSAC workshop, also thanks to Niels, has given the BSAC a very clear indication that cormorants are no longer threatened in the Baltic. During the workshop, it was suggested that the Baltic Sea basin could be home to more than 200,000 breeding pairs and the cormorants. And what is the most important right now? In light of these facts, and as a result of the discussion, BSAC members work out the common recommendations. So we achieved consensus in providing the recommendations for the managers. This recommendation on the conservation and the management of the seals and the cormorants will be published coming Monday, and it will be distributed among all of you. And I wish to, this discussion will continue. We believe that this file will help the managers in Brussels and in the capitals of the member states around the Baltic, especially, to continue with this discussion and to have a merit dialogue. And I believe, and I'm sure that we'll have more meetings on the BSAC platform. And I wish to invite all of you to join this discussion. We want to hear all the opinions, and this is what the BSAC is, Baltic Sea Advisory Council, published with the EU money, and supported by the Baltfish high-level group of the Baltic member states. That's what it's been created for. So thank you. By this, I take the opportunity to Niels and to the other scientists to thank you for your participation and sharing the outcome of your work with us, and we look for the dialogue with everyone, Ginter, including you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And as we have to kind of summarize here as well, time has been already. We are broke with the time already. But yeah, how do we go on from here? And anyone who's willing to summarize from her or his part. And Carola, please.
Yeah, I'll start. So I really, as I said in the beginning, I like the discussion here. I like what I hear from the Baltic states. I think you're upfront, but please don't forget us. So in the southern parts of Germany, we are depending on what you decide. So you are not only deciding for yourselves, but also for a lot of the rest of Europe.
Gunther? Maybe you.
Yeah, my last thought is gonna be that the humans are stupid.
Yeah.
We should be much more flexible. We see that the cormorant population is going up, which indicates that there is fish in the sea, but just not the kind of fish that we want. So if we would be flexible like the cormorant, then we could use that kind of fish and turn it to our profit, and that would also put some competition on the cormorant. But this is not something that has been taught so far.
But any solution that you would be willing to go on, or bird scientists would be willing to go on, and they would want to move on from here?
I'm not sure what
what would be the most important things to move on with the question that we've been dealing here today?
Well,
what would you focus on?
Well, in Estonia, as I said, we need data. We need data to see what kind of impact we are dealing with, and then we can try to discuss together some kind of goals and strategies.
Thank you for that. Then Lauri, yeah.
I guess we have we had rather good plan again, and we now renewed the cormorant management plan in Estonia, and somehow it nullified previous demonstrations of scientific results. But anyway, we are scientists, we like to do research, we will do the research, but I really hope that this nature conservation thing should be viewed more a little bit like ecologically. We should actually, like Liebig's rule, we should check which problems we actually do have. We don't have problems with quite a lot of bird species because quite a lot of them go up, quite a lot of them go down. And if we are managing these issues, we should just consider them as equal. If we are shooting foxes to get the waders to do better in the coastal areas, why not? I'm totally for that. If we need to manage the cormorant population because they are obviously limiting the fish populations, we should do that. We should just take the same approach. We are managing nature all the time. So let's do it for all the species equally, maybe.
And Niels, your concluding thoughts? Just really summarizing.
I'm very much with Lauri on this, because I think that we should protect as much as we can, and it's all about management, and especially in Denmark, talking about nature and natural processes is basically not wanting to argue, because we have 2% of our land as kind of nature. All the rest is fucked, you know. So it's pretty stupid to talk about that. So I think it's management and management and management. It's too bad. I would love to not have that. I would love to take people out of the equation and say, okay, let's rewild the whole damn thing and let it be, and then everything would be fine. But that's not the thing it is. And I'm so happy to work together with other organizations. We work with the Nature Conservancy in the Protect Fish project, but we also would like to work much more with BirdLife Europe. But on the other hand, when you are a member of a BirdLife Europe, your interest is to protect the birds, and you don't have to care about the fish. You don't, because you want to protect those birds. And the only thing that Günther and his organization should be focused on is to make sure that the cormorants don't go close to any kind of extinction, and that none of the other birds are affected negatively what we do. That's their concern, and that's totally fair, and they should have that. And if they I would do the same. I mean, if I go into a room and negotiating for fish that I try to protect, I would say I don't care about these other animals, because now we are talking about the fish, because they are having a big problem. So I don't think we have big problems between us as such. It's just often made that way. Yeah, it's good to be. It's a big difference to represent a scientific point of view. We represent science here, and you're representing an organization now, an interest organization. So like the Anglers, European Anglers Alliance, they can fight very well with the BirdLife Europe, because they are both organizations that are protecting and trying to fight for their ways. And this is the way it should be. I think this is a great way in a pluralistic society. We just have to not forget that we all work for the same thing on the basis. So people who really hate each other on Facebook and so on, it doesn't help anybody. It's just bad for all of us. So I think we have a very good progress in this, and I think the last 10 years that I've been involved, and of course, for me, having been more and more involved in the European scene, it seems to me that more and more people are taking this very seriously and really want to try to solve something here. And I'm sure that if we get some kind of coordinated management, like we talked about, it will bring us a way forward. It might not solve all our problems, but it will do something. And I'm 100% sure we can do it without. It's not very expensive, it's not very tough, and we are not going to damage a lot of things. So I'm sure we can do it.
So yeah, as I see, to conclude it all up, I think that when people are managing things, then they are of course in charge of these things. So just don't have to forget about that if we are in charge, then we just want to make sure that anything doesn't go the way that we don't want it to go. Exactly. So I tell all of you, big thanks once again. I tell big thanks to all of the presentations today as well. And I think that we'll see what's next and what's upcoming. But have a nice evening, and let's give ourselves a nice warm-up of applause. And thank you for watching us online as well. Thank you.